Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on this edition of the REI Hacker Podcast. My next guest is a longtime friend. I've known Tim for a few years now, and Tim ran a really amazing group, the Hero Coaches Group, and got a chance to hang out with Tim and spend some time with him. But Tim is a real estate fund manager. He's an entrepreneur based out of Houston, Texas. Tim has over 20 years of experience and has acquired and exited over $50 million worth of real estate and is currently a partner, both a general and limited partner in over 4,200 multifamily units. He also founded the Hero Wealth Fund, which is a fund that help passive investors achieve financial goals. And also, he's a mentor and a philanthropist at heart. Tim co-founded the Teen Millionaire Challenge and has raised over $1 million for charitable causes. Tim, thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I know you're super busy down there, changing the world in Houston. How have you been?
I've been great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Yeah, really honor and privileged to be on here with you today.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. It was very timely too, because you and I were chatting on Facebook, and you got a really cool event coming up to talk about, capital raising. But let's start a little bit about your past and how you got into real estate. Doing a little bit of research on you've had let's say trying childhood, and a very challenging, path from Vietnam to the US. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So if you ever heard of the term Vietnamese boat people, I'm one of those. What it means is that it's a group of people that after the war ended in 1975 and the communist government took over, you can't just leave the country. If you want to leave, you have to escape out of the country. And if they catch you, they'll put you in jail. And so a lot of people escape out on boats to, other refugee camps or even on foot to like Thailand, Cambodia, wherever they can, to try to get out of that communist, control. And my whole family had tried to escape many times, wasn't successful. One time, the whole family we got caught and the whole family got put in jail. And yeah, I was very young back then. Um, and when my older brother turned 18, at that time, it's when a boy turns 18, it's automatic draft into the communist military. And so my parents want my brother to try to escape out of the country again, and he didn't want to go alone, so he asked if I wanted to come along. As I was 11 years old at that time, and as a kid, I didn't know any better. I was like, "Sure, I'll come along." We always go back home anyway, so I did not think that we'll be able to make it out successfully. But yeah, so it was my brother and I, without our parents, we attempted to get out, and we got on a little fishing boat. There are a total of 37 people on the boat. I was the only child, so 36 adults. And yeah, we pretty much floated out at sea for 7 days and 6 nights. On the fourth day, we got hijacked by five pirate boats. These are Thai fishermen that would, rape the woman, throw the man off the boat, steal whatever valuables that they can. And luckily for us, they only took our valuables, but they didn't kill anybody, didn't rape anybody. And then yeah, so a couple days later, we got rescued by Malaysian boats, and they took us to the Malaysian refugee camp. And then yeah, so we spent a year in the refugee camp, and was accepted here into the U.S., moved here to Houston. So by the time we were here, I was 12 years old. My brother was 19 years old. Two boys without our parents. We had the teenage dream life, right? To be able to like to have all the freedom we could possibly want it. But we had to figure out a way to survive on our own. So we applied for Section 8 housing, live in a two-bedroom apartment. It's funny because now that I buy apartment buildings, like some of the ones that I go look at these days looks just like the one I was in back in those days. And yeah, so we were young to make ends meet. we let other guys who yeah, were like also kids, runaway kids, a lot of them, to stay with us as well, to chip in on food costs and things like that. And yeah, so luckily we got out of that environment. I was able to finish high school. During college, I got recruited by an IT company. This is during the dot-com days.
Mm-hmm.
And as you guys know what happened to dot-com, shortly after there was a dot bust.
Mm-hmm.
And I got laid off my IT job in 2002. You know, didn't know what to do next. At that time, IT jobs were very hard to find. So I went to bookstores to, look at different, to study on different other types of things I can do, and, potential business that I can start. And I came across Robert Kiyosaki's book, was the first book I came across, and then also Robert Allen's book, Nothing Down. And so I learned a bit about real estate, and somewhere in those books, I learned that, over 80% of self-made millionaires in America invest in real estate. So I thought to myself, if self-made millionaires in America invest in real estate, and I want to be a self-made millionaire, then that's what I'll do. I'll follow their footstep. And so that's how I got started in real estate, moved back to Houston, um, and started real estate in Houston here in 2002. So it's been 22 years now.
Wow.
That's I've been here. Yep.
What an amazing story. I mean, that you have so many reasons to not push hard, so many reasons to not, succeed, but you've really just overcome so much adversity throughout your entire life. And then, like, people become entrepreneurs sometimes by accident, but yours was very intentional to create more problems for yourself, right? Because it's not an easy path, right? And it would have been much easier for you to go get a 9 to 5 job and just do some job you hate. But there was something in you that said you wanted to be wealthy, right? Because 70% of wealthy people make it through real estate. What was it in you that made you feel like, oh, I want to be wealthy? Because you came from nothing.
Right. Yeah. Well, because I came from nothing, that drive to like do whatever it takes to survive. I mean, there was countless days I came home from middle school, opened up the refrigerator, and there was literally nothing to eat. A bottle of tap water was all we had in the refrigerator. And
Wow.
so that drive to survive kind of stuck with me. And yeah, and so when you come from that poor, you're like, my dream was like, I want to be rich, one day, right? And I was like, I want to be a millionaire by 30 years old. I want to have generational wealth. So it's like, in that environment, like that's all I could do is like dreaming as big as I can dream, of a day that I'll be out of that environment. And I think that growing up that way, I think helped a lot, in the way that I look at life, the way I look at opportunities, and my work ethics. It helps because my brother used to have to, stand on because he didn't speak any English when we came here, and in the beginning, like he literally was just selling flowers on street corners. Like we did whatever we could. To come up with money to be able to survive. So yeah, it's taught me a lot.
Oh yeah, that work ethic. Now something happens in your real estate business or your one of your businesses, and it's like, this is nothing. Like, I was in the ocean for 7 days. This little thing that would ruin somebody else, right? Can ruin their entire day, cause them to lash out at their employees and yell and just be a bad person overall. You overcome so much at a young age that it really just instilled in you that, like, you can do anything. And you've done so much. How was it for you meeting one of your early mentors in Robert Allen, right? Reading his book
Yeah.
and him inspiring you and teaching you real estate, right? When you had no foundational understanding of it, to him coming to your mastermind.
Right. Yeah, it's that very first event that I guess reconnected with him, because what happened, so part of my journey in real estate, I joined his program. At that time he had a program with Mark Victor Hansen, and they wrote a book together called The 1 Minute Millionaire, and they had a program called the Millionaire Eagles, and my name is in the back of the book. And basically, it's a mentorship program on real estate investing, and that's where I learned to do my very first fix and flip property. And so reconnecting with him, 20 years later, uh, and having the honor of him speaking on my stage was just an amazing experience. And yeah, and then the Teen Millionaire Challenge project was a project that we started together
Oh,
to help
wow.
young people, to help young people to learn to invest in real estate. And so yeah, I mean, so much of my life is just like one dream come true after another. I feel very, very blessed.
Well, you certainly had a hand in all of it, right? Like you didn't just stumble into these occurrences, right? You weren't just lucky, right? You created those opportunities for yourself. Did you ever meet Robert Kiyosaki?
I did not. No, no,
No,
I
you
did not
haven't yet. Not yet, right?
yet. Yeah.
Um, I met Kim once. Kim is in the Family Mastermind, and I got a chance to meet her. Not I don't know her well, but that's kind of the cool thing about the circles that we operate in is like we have opportunities to meet some of these people that were just people that we looked up to and that we put on a pedestal, and then you realize like they're real people.
Yep.
It's pretty cool. Is there anybody else that you've met through your, entrepreneurial, journey where you were like, oh my God, I got to meet so and so. Anybody like that?
Yeah, so Peter Conti is another one of the gentlemen I've met years later. So, you know, he and it's funny because I was in a bookstore, one of the, back then, right? That was my favorite place to go because I get free education. Was the bookstore, and one of the books that I picked up that he wrote on lease option, and it says, if you want to do, if you want to do a deal in the next 30 days, go put out 100 bandit signs. And I read like the first three chapter, which is where it talked about that. I closed the book, put it back, never, didn't buy the book. I went out, it's like, hey, he said to put out 100 signs. You know what? I'm gonna put out 200 signs. So my then girlfriend, now wife, and I, we made up these signs. She would drive the car. I put out the signs, and I think we put it out on like a Thursday or something like that. And then Robert Allen's event that I signed up for was that weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And on Monday morning, the seller called from the signs. Long story short, we ended up, at that event too, I also learned how to negotiate, how to ask if I can pay you all cash and close quickly. What's the least you would accept? And then the follow up to that was, and so she said, 65,000 is the least I'll accept. And then I follow up with, is that the best you can do? And she said, the best I can do is 55. And I mean, in my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, this thing works just like the way they taught it in the class. I couldn't believe it. Long story short, I ended up making over $50,000 on that deal. And so I met Peter years later. And so that was 2002. I met Peter in 2009, and I told him this story. And I said, "Hey, Peter, I still haven't bought your book yet, but I'm gonna go buy it now."
That's
And
amazing. You
we
probably got a
became,
kick out of that.
yes, he did. We
He's like, I'll
became
take
good friends
my
after that.
split. You get a commission off of it, right?
Yes, yep. So yeah,
That's
these days we have YouTube, university, right? But back then it was the bookstores.
Oh yeah. Do you still read a lot, or is it
I do.
something? Do you?
I do. Yeah.
What's one of the books
These
that you have read recently that you think that is just, top notch that people should read as well?
Yeah, definitely. So these days I do audiobooks. I'm much better with audiobooks. I read very slow, so Audiobooks is my thing, but the latest book that I finished recently is two books actually by Michael Singer. One of the books is called The Surrender Experiment, which is about how, like his journey to building a company that was hundreds of millions of dollars, sold to WebMD. And then so that's The Surrender Experiment, and then his other book called The Untethered Soul. It's a personal development books, but I've learned so much out of that. It's just, as you know, as business owners, we have our ups and downs.
Yeah.
And it's not just in business, everywhere in our lives, we have ups and downs in our, relationship, in our marriage, in our parenting, all of that, right? And, his books is all about freeing ourselves from all of the suffering, and being able to almost like being able to approach any situation from clarity, right? From a level of clarity to be able to solve anything. So very amazing books. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, dealing with, such intense, challenges through your life, like you've instilled a certain amount of toughness in you, right? So how do you maintain that edge while still, being, compassion and wanting to help people in the mentorship? Like they're almost contradictory.
Um, I don't know if they're necessarily contradictory, but my whole brand, and I started branding. So I went through my own journey. You know how we all go through our, midlife crisis, or in my case, it was like my third life or my quarter life crisis, whatever you call it. But we go through these soul searching journey. And, I realized that the first part of my career in my real estate, I was in business to make a profit, right? So I did whatever it took to make a profit because I grew up, needing to make money. And after I sold, after I went through a soul searching journey in around 2010 time frame. And I wanted to look at like what do I want to make the next part of my life be about, right? And so I wanted to make it about contributing to others success and making a difference. In 2017, I started this brand, this hero brand, which stands for Heart-Centered Entrepreneurs Enriching Others. So I want to make my business about, enriching the lives of those that I serve, as well as empowering other entrepreneurs to enrich the lives of the clients that they serve, the communities that they serve. And so I have incorporated, the charity component to everything that I do quite a bit. Um, and yeah, so really like, been practicing more and more on, keeping the focus on serving others, as a way to not only make a living, but to have a fulfilling life and a fulfilling business.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that evolution of entrepreneurship where it's at the beginning for a lot of entrepreneurs, you're learning and you're hustling and it's scraps, right? You're living off of nothing. And then you have a certain level of success, you doing your first flip, right? And making 50 grand off of a deal. And then, you move from there and then you built the brand and you've moved on from the single family world into the multifamily world, which is really exciting, right? That's where a lot of people have similar trajectories as what you've already started. And now you teach people about capital raising. So what was that evolution like and where are you
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, um, gosh, and this is if you guys are in the single family home space, and if you ever thought of, hey, this multifamily, this commercial real estate, is too big for me, it's too complicated, blah, 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 right? So I had that story for 20 years of my life. And in 2021, I met a friend, Javier Hinojo. And as we were talking, he said, Hey, yeah, I used to do fix and flip too. These days, I just focus on multifamily and commercial real estate, and each deal that I do adds at least $1 million to my net worth. Yes.
Wow.
When I heard that, like my ear poked up. That was that was a huge light bulb moment for me. And because for 20 something years, I thought that these multifamily deals, these commercial deals was just too big. Even though I was very successful in the single family home side, I still had that limiting belief. And Yeah, and then Javier came on and became the third partner in the Teen Millionaire Challenge project. So it's Robert Allen, Javier, and myself. And through that program, and in that program, the Javier taught the kids about commercial real estate. So I get to watch these teenagers, I mean, kids, right? Through that program, analyzed and made offers on over $1 billion worth of real estate. And they talked to brokers like it's nothing. They didn't have all the baggage that I had. And yeah, so watching them through that program, was the second light bulb moments that came on for me. And that's when I decided to go all in on this multifamily commercial real estate space. Because I told myself, it's like, man, if these kids can do it, I can do it, right? And yeah, so coming into this industry, I looked at the different aspects of the business and to see which one will play the best to my strength and my skill set, and also getting mentoring from Javier as well. And I realized that capital raising is the part of the business that plays to my strength the most. And so I decided to focus in on capital raising, and through that I learned a hack that I did not know existed before I came to the industry. Because in the single family home side, a deal is fairly inexpensive, 200, $300,000 deals or so. Back when I first started, we were able to get deals for as low as like, you know, 5, 10, 50,000, right? It- you know, of course, those don't come around much anymore. But regardless, in the single family home deals, the deals are small enough. Most of them are under $1 million. And so you can play all the roles in the deal. You can be the guy that found the deal, the guy that, find the private lenders to fund the deal, the guy that remodeled the deal, sell the deal, right? You can be a one man, show and do the entire thing. But in these commercial real estate, big, large multifamily commercial real estate, a small deal is like a $10 million deal. And so you can't do it all yourself. And I realized that there's different players that are needed to make a deal, go well. So you have the person who finds the deal, you have the person who, do all of the management of the deals, oversee the construction, all of that stuff. You have the guy that do the capital raising, and they all come together as partners. You can be long-term partners, or you can just be deal partners where it's just a specific deal. And yeah, so basically I discovered that, hey, if all I did was, start a fund and raise money for my fund and use that money to partner with people on deals, I can partner on as many deals as I want. I can partner on as many partners as I want. And so that's how I was able to now, I'm a partner in over 4,200 units, which is, I think it's like 17 or 18 different complexes, apartment complexes. Um, because I bring the part to the table that, they want, which is the capital part, while they're doing everything else. And so, yeah, it's a huge teamwork, and that allows us to hack our way through, I mean, now, even if I see $100 million deal or $500 million deal, I'm not afraid of them anymore. It's because it's all about partnership, all about teamwork, collaboration to take down such a deal.
So to be clear, is the hack that you only had to do one piece of it and focus on learning one thing really well, and that was the capital raising? Is that the hack that you figured out?
That, yes, that I figured out. And then that, if anybody wants to get into this industry, the capital raising part is the easiest. It sounds like it's the hardest, but it's actually the most leveraged, maybe, okay, not the easiest, the most leveraged skill set that you can have.
Hmm.
Because when you're able to raise the capital, you can partner up with the best of the best. Because in this industry, I don't care how big you are, the bigger you are, the more money you need, right? Because if you're doing billion-dollar deals, well, guess what? You need $1 billion worth of capital. And so everyone in this industry always have a need for money. And so if when you position yourself and you have the skill set to help bring the capital, you can partner with pretty much anybody that you want. So you're able to leverage, the experience, the expert, the yeah, um, you know, yeah, the skill set, all of that, and you just bring in the part that you're good at. And so yeah, so it's like these, I teach my students to start the business as capital raising. You know how like in a single family home, it can take a brand new person months to get their first deal. Like it took me 6 months to get my first deal. Well, as a capital raiser, um, you can get into your first deal literally from day one if you wanted to, or week one if you wanted to. So the speed to which you start doing deals, uh, like is amazing as a capital raiser.
So a lot of people start off as in wholesaling, right? On the single
Hmm.
family side, because it's low
Yep,
out of pocket costs. And it sounds like this would be similar, low out of pocket costs. It's really like a hustling kind of sales kind of position, right? And building trust with people. Is that kind of where the skill set lies? Is because people have to trust you with their money.
exactly. So that's where it's different from wholesaling, because
Hmm.
you know, wholesaling is really about like your ability to market yourself and find the deals, right? And negotiate, sell. But capital raising is all long-term relationships. So it's more similar to someone who build relationship with private lenders and utilize that money for deals for the flips, right? So you it's not, yeah, so it's slightly different. The mindset is a very different mindset, because when you're raising capital, you're looking to build relationship for life. So it's not a burn and churn model. It's not a one-time thing. It's not a transactional business like wholesaling is. It's a lifelong relationship, that you're gonna do many deals with the same investor. And
Hmm.
so you do have to think very differently. You have to, yeah, it's all about building relationship. And the the uh the more wealthy the person you build relationship with, the better it is for you, for sure. But in terms of income wise, I mean, because you are partnering in the deal, you are valued just as much as the person who finds the deal, just as much as the person who manages the deal. It's not, the capital raising is actually probably the most valued skill set in the whole equation.
Mm. So
Yes,
what are the
so it's more like you're playing at the level of the bank almost, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's why there's definitely a road or a path for people who become private money lenders when they were flipping and they're like, okay, now I'm just going to lend the money, right? So they want to put themselves in the position of what the bank does,
right.
right? And then if you can find low interest money and then you lend it out at high interest, you take that arbitrage, right? And so you're adding value to that deal, but it's just, you're taking the difference.
Yep.
For
Yeah,
this strategy, it seems to me that if someone starts doing this, they need to have some sort of revenue coming in to sustain themselves because it's a long game, right? Like you
100%.
don't
Yeah,
make money right away, right? You maybe
correct.
get partnership, a percentage of the deal, but
Hmm.
what does the timeline look like for somebody who's starting off in this before they get their
Yeah.
first check?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, your first check can come very fast. It might not be a big check. So, for example, let's say you raise $1 million, and you close on that deal, because you do get an acquisition fee from the. And I'm just gonna use an example. let's say you raise, you have a deal, you raise $1 million for it, uh, and part of that transaction, you charge your investors an acquisition fee, or and that fee can be somewhere between 2 to 4%. So you make $20,000 to $40,000 up front. And then the rest of that money comes in equity, right, when you sell the deal. So you can make money very quickly. However, know that commercial real estate is a long-term game. This is not, yeah, this is, if someone is like, you know, uh, like needing really urgent money, like commercial real estate is not the way to go for sure. Unless you're just bird dogging. But even that, I mean, a commercial real estate transaction life cycle is much longer. And so, yeah, you do need to have another source of income. Ideally, is that you have another source of income and you're building this business. This is a real business. It's not, that's why comparing it to wholesaling is not the right way to compare it. But but yeah, it is. You are building a legitimate business for long term, and so it is better if you have another source of income while you're building out this business.
So what are those timelines? What do they look like typically? Is there a range?
Depends on the type of deals that you do, but like I said, so using that example, let's say it's a deal that's ready now. You have all the relationships in place. You raise your $1 million. You make the 20 to 40,000 dollars up front. You're gonna make probably another 150,000 or so on the back end when the deal goes full cycle. Like meaning, you sell them 5 years down the road, right? And so it can happen, and that you can make that money within the first 30 days, assuming that you have the relationships already to be able to raise that $1 million, which is the part that takes a little bit longer.
Mm,
But if you don't have that relationship at all and you have to build that from scratch, then your first deal, you might not be able to raise $1 million. Maybe you raise 100,000 or 500,000. Then all the numbers becomes, smaller, right? Proportionately.
right.
Um, and yeah, but I mean because you're leveraging now, traditionally speaking, if we're not talking about hacking our way through this, traditionally speaking, if you're gonna go into this business and start looking for a multifamily or commercial real estate deal and start to learn to underwrite them and start learn to do the due diligence and blah blah blah, that whole thing can take at least a year to ever be able to get your first deal, because these are much bigger deals. But because we're hacking it, where we're just coming in with the capital part of it, and we're partnering with an experienced operator, already have deal flow, already have the team in place to do everything else. That's how we're able to get the speed to be able to get paid within 30 days, is because of that ability to leverage an existing, proven partner.
Hmm. So anybody who's wanting to get started, then where do they learn these skills? How do they, is there books they can buy, or is this something that you guys teach as well?
Yeah. So we definitely do teach that. I don't know anybody that teach that specific strategy. Like, I don't think it exists. Most people just teach you how to go find your own deals, how to, source your own funding, blah, blah, blah. That's the traditional route. That's why when I first came into this industry, I didn't even know that what I'm doing now existed in the industry, because it's almost like a hush hush kind of thing.
Hmm.
Not sure why, or maybe people just don't think about it. It exists in the industry, like people are doing it. It's just no one teaching it that way. And so I have since, begin to teach a lot about it, and the term fund manager like scares a lot of people, but really it's a lot easier than you might think it is. All like a fund is nothing more than an LLC that you create where you pull people's money together and you invest that money. That's it. And
Mm.
you the general partner, the or quote I'm just kind of referencing, if you're familiar with LLC, there's the managing member, right? And then there's the other member. So you as a general partner is like the managing member, to manage that, and you get paid to do that. But yeah, it requires people to learn about this whole world of funds and fund of funds, like these, terminology that we don't normally hear in the single family home space. But once you get past your fear of these terminologies, the actual business itself is pretty simple.
Does this, so every now and again I'll go to an event and there's going to be one or two booths there that it's teaching people how to create a fund, right?
Hmm.
And I went to one, it was the Better Life one, it was Brandon Turner's event. And there was somebody there and there were lawyers, right? They
Hmm.
said it's about 15, $20,000 to start a fund.
Hmm.
And because there's the SEC regulations and there's a
Yep.
bunch of laws and things you have to abide by. Are we talking about the same thing here?
Yeah, we are talking about the same thing. Now, there's many different types of funds. So different costs associated with them. Whether your fund is going to raise for one deal at a time, or your fund is going to raise for multiple deals. So there are intricacies beyond the word fund. But yes, we are talking about a legitimate fund that's managed or not, that are uh, uh, what is it called? Like, that has to abide by the SEC rules and regulations and all of that
The
stuff.
compliancy,
The compliance, there you go.
right?
But yeah, I mean, you're like, this is a legitimate, big business you're doing. Is not something you can just like, hey, I'm a proprietor. Let
Right.
me start this with my DBA. Like, it doesn't work that way. You're raising money from from private individuals. They call it retail investors. So there are definitely education that you have to have, right? Things that you have to learn. But what I want, the main thing that I want to highlight is that it sounds more complicated than it is. Because I know for me, if you talked to me 2 years ago, about all of these stuff, like, it fly right over my head, and my limiting beliefs about these kind of deals, the complexity, I could never do them, right? That was my limiting beliefs. But now that I'm here, I realize, like, oh my gosh, this is like a million times easier than doing fix and flips. Um, but I don't know that until I'm able to overcome my fear, the initial fear, right, of these bigger deals and of the complexity and SEC this and SEC that. But once you get past that complexity, um, you realize, like, oh, I mean, we all wake up and put our pants on pretty much the same way. Socks on pretty much the same way, different terminologies, but because they are bigger deals, because they are, it requires teamwork, it requires partnerships, it makes things so much easier. Like, I know with Privy as an example, right? To run a Privy as a business, you have the person that's doing the marketing, you have the person that come up with the ideas, the vision, you have the developers, blah blah blah, right? It's not You're not going to find like one person that's doing all of those things
Right.
to run a big business like that. Well, in commercial real estate, it's the same way. And so because it requires a team to run such a business, then you can come in and just do one part of the business, and that's it. And you have team members that do the other parts of the business.
You mentioned earlier that there weren't a lot of people talking about it, right? Almost like it was a
Right.
good old boy network, right? Like
Hmm.
you don't have to, but to know somebody in the business is a great way to get in, right? Like somebody
Right.
can like be your sponsor almost, like get you in the
Hmm.
biz. Because I'm sure that first deal for most capital raisers is the hardest, right? Because you haven't
Yep.
done it, right? The first thing that someone's going to ask you when you ask for their money is, well, does this work? How many deals have you done? Right. And so that first one probably has like a high barrier to entry to like really do it. But then once you've
Yep.
done the first deal, right, number one, you can prove yourself that you can do it.
Yep.
Now you've got a resume, you've built some relationships, right? And then everything becomes probably much more simple at that point.
100%. Yeah, the first deal of anything is like I'm even the same thing. My very first fix and flip was like a giant mountain to climb over, right? Even a first wholesale deal is giants. And so, yeah, your first commercial real estate deal is definitely very challenging if you don't have the right guidance. If so don't even try to do this on your own. Like there's so many ways you can make mistakes and ways, potentially lose a lot of money because earnest money in these kind of deals are huge. They're typically, the kind of size deals that I do, earnest money, it's generally $1 million on up. So it's a giant amount of money to lose, right?
Wow.
And so yeah, so it's not, you know, so it's not something that you want to go through the school of hard knocks and try to figure it out yourself. You can do that with like a fourplex, a fiveplex, or something small like that. But the bigger the deals, I mean, uh, the more you need other people, you need other partners, um, and it's so much better to do it as a team like that than try to be a lone wolf in this business. Like, yeah,
Right.
you can get away with lone wolfing in the single family home business, but definitely not in this commercial real estate business.
Oh yeah. So like let's say somebody wanted to start off, like what would they first do? Because they have to have something to raise money for, right? So is the
Right.
first thing like trying to find the operators who has the deal flow and then
Hmm.
finding out what their offering is and then take that, learn about it, and then go try to find someone to put money into the deal. Is that kind of the strategy?
That is how you would, yeah, yes, that's how I had to do it. Yes. Now I have shortcutted even more for people. So I've built a whole network now of operators that have deals, fund managers, capital raisers that can raise money. And I put those two networks together. And so like I have my event coming up called the Capital Raising Summit, where it's a room full of operators and capital raisers getting together to network, to mastermind, to look at how we can do deals together. So that's the fastest way is to be able to tap into a network like mine, so that way you have those connections and and very quickly just by talking like who's an operator that you can raise money for and not take a lot of risk. Because when you're partnering with someone, it's just like a business partnership, right? You don't want to just randomly partner with someone on a deal because if they don't execute the business plan well, your investors can lose all of their money. And so it's important that that you choose and you vet to find proven operators to partner with. And yeah, and then partner with other capital raisers as well, other fund managers as well to collaborate, to learn from them, and because if you have, I mean, I have gotten to a level of experience now where I know how to best find the right operator to raise money for. And so when you come alongside with me, you shortcut, like even if you say, "Oh, I'll just go on whichever deal that Tim's go on," as an example, right? Then like you already shortcut yourself through, a few years of learning curve, just by doing that.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's a proven investment strategy. People have been doing that for years with Warren Buffett, right? They just watch
Yep.
what Warren Buffett buys and what he sells, and they just do the same thing, and they'll make money.
Yep.
Or if you just do what, well, this is not a perfect example, what Nancy Pelosi does, right? Like whatever Nancy Pelosi is buying and selling, that's what you want to do too, right? Because she's got some insider information about what's going on there, right? So this it's a smart move, right? It's a good business move to shortcut the timelines, right? Shorten your timelines from like learning to success, avoiding pitfalls, avoiding mistakes, all of those mistakes that can be very costly, time
Yep.
and money especially. And
Exactly.
you maybe only have one chance to mess up, right? If you take $1 million from an investor and you lose that money, I mean, your reputation is gone at that point,
Yep.
right? So like if you're not careful in doing this right, especially from a capital raising perspective, and you choose the wrong operator, like that could be, you could be one and done.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and um, the- as we mentioned earlier, this is a long-term business. You got to think long-term and you got to think leverage. Yeah, this is this is one of those business where you definitely have to think strategically.
So tell me about the event that's coming up.
Yeah, so this is now our third year hosting this event. Can't believe how fast time flies here. And yeah, so it's called a Capital Raising Summit, and I started this event because I wanted to learn from the best of the best in the industry on how to raise capital. And so I reach out to, as many top players as I could, that's willing to let me interview them and then invite them to become a speaker at our event. That's kind of like my nature. Whenever I'm learning something, I always love to bring others alongside with me to learn with me. And yeah, and so I started a whole community for capital raisers to learn about capital raising, to learn to how to become a fund manager. And yeah, so the events, have some of the most extraordinary syndicators and fund managers in our industry. One of the speakers, Paul Hutchison, his fund is now a $50 billion fund with a B.
Wow.
Yeah, him and a partner started from ground zero, with $0 to start and grew that. He has now retired from his fund. He's doing mostly philanthropy type work now. He's the main investor and the executive producer of the movie Sound of Freedom. Have you heard about that movie?
Hmm.
About child sex trafficking. So is such an extraordinary human being. While running this multi-billion-dollar fund, he was putting himself at risk going on these undercover missions to rescue kids from sex trafficking. It's crazy, extraordinary. So that's one of our keynote speakers. Pace Morby, a lot of you guys have heard of Pace. He's also one of our keynote speakers. So Pace started becoming a fund manager a couple years ago, right around when I started as well. And we're actually in a deal together. And yeah, so Pace is another one of our keynote speakers that are coming. We have, Brad Sumrock's another keynote speaker. We have just a whole lineup of just extraordinary, uh, you know, um, syndicators and fund managers, different levels of experience that are speaking. So yeah, so coming to the event, you get to meet the top players in the industry. You get to learn about capital raising. You get to network with operators, with other capital raisers, mastermind with them. It's So the event is coming up on September 19th to 21st in Houston, Texas. And so that's coming up very, very quickly here.
It is. That's just right around the corner.
Yep.
That is amazing. So it's in Houston, in-person event, right? There isn't anything that people can do online. Um, do they just register and show up, or
Yeah,
is
yeah,
there a
yeah. So
fee, or how does it work for the logistics?
yeah. There's a ticket cost. Right now we're running a 40% off special, so you are able to get the ticket as low as 597 right now. And it's for two people. It's buy one give one, so it's for two people. And yeah, you just go to capitalraisingsummit.com to register. And then if you're not able to make it to the event, or if you want to be able to get plugged into, I also host a weekly virtual meetup where I interview a top capital raiser as well. And the link, and that's completely free. The weekly virtual meetup's completely free. It's capitalraisingparty.com.
I love it. I've been getting those in my TikTok feed, the little snippets. So I'm always watching those with you and those different guests. Those are very entertaining. Well, awesome. Well, so where can people go to register for the event?
Yeah, so go to capitalraisingsummits.com, and yeah, register. And yeah, for the in-person event, and then for our weekly virtual meetup, it's capitalraisingparty.com.
Awesome. Well, Tim, you got me excited. This is a side of the world that I didn't even really understand. I've learned a little bit by just talking to you about it, but you got my interest piqued for sure. So I definitely want to check this out more. Hopefully we can set up a time to talk a little bit more about it. But for anybody that's listening who's interested in, transitioning or even maybe adding something else to what you're currently doing, because again, this is a long-term play. Like there's no better time to start than now, right? So start
Yep.
learning, go to Tim's free calls, go to the event. If you can swing it, it's coming up here fairly quickly, but I think it would be worthwhile. And we're always trying to evolve and grow in this business. And you can only do so many wholesale deals. You can only do so many flips before it's time to grow. So check this out, Tim. Thanks again for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Learned a bunch. And for those of you who are out there listening to the REI Hacker podcast, I really appreciate you, sharing this episode with your sphere. Talk to people about, capital raising and get involved with Tim. He's going to be one of your best partners and getting started in this side of the business. So thanks again, Tim. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
You got it. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care.
Take care.
That's a wrap on today's Real Estate Revelations. Thank you for tuning into the REI Hacker Podcast. Remember, every property has a story, and every deal is a lesson. Until next time, keep hacking the real estate world.